I'm Jeremy Harder for North by Northeast, and today I'm in the beautiful Bighorn Mountains, and I'm with Traci Weaver, who is the District Ranger for the Powder River Ranger District, located just down the way a little bit here on 16 in Buffalo. Traci, thank you for joining me today in this beautiful setting.
Thanks for coming out here. It's great to have you.
Yeah, so we're going to talk a little bit about the Bighorn National Forest and kind of what the Ranger's office does, and let's talk a little bit about you. How did you find yourself becoming the District Ranger?
Well, I grew up in Wyoming and had wanted to come back here for a long time. My last job, I was working at the Forest Service Regional Office in Portland, Oregon, which is kind of difficult for a Wyoming girl.
Oh, yeah.
And just had the opportunity to come back here. I worked primarily in fire and public affairs for most of my career. So this is my first District Ranger job, and it was just an amazing opportunity to come back to Buffalo and to the beautiful Bighorn Mountains. And
so there's several different ranger offices kind of in the Bighorn area. Can you talk about those briefly and just how they each work together?
There used to be 6 districts on the Bighorn National Forest. There are now 3. And so the Powder River Ranger District covers basically the southern third of the Bighorn Mountains. So if you look at the district line, Cloud Peak is kind of the
defining split.
And then the other 2 districts are on the north end of the forest. So one out of Sheridan, that's the Tongue District, and then one out of Grable, which is the Medicine Wheel District. Well, our Forest Supervisor's office is in Sheridan, and so that covers everything in the forest. And then the ranger districts break it down, by the districts. And so we primarily, out of our office, we have a wildland fire module. We have recreation folks, and our specific recreation area is the Cloud Peak Wilderness. So we have the Wilderness Rangers out of our office. The Tongue District has the Trails program out of theirs, and the Medicine Wheel District has the Visitor Center, and of course the Medicine Wheel. And we also we also have a range program in each of the 3 districts, and then we share the timber, the wildlife, the hydrology, the aquatics, all the rest of the program areas are kind of shared, based out of Sheridan, out of the supervisor's office. And then we have a support services group in the in the customer service. So for people to get wood cutting permits or special use permits through recreation, we have a bunch of summer cabins that people own, and they work through a special use permit on that, and outfitters and guides.
Oh wow!
Just a lot of
a lot of different things you cover.
Yeah.
So I mean, you talked a little bit obviously about some of those. I mean, what are the specifics of like the wildlife or wildfire? I mean, what do you guys usually do in those type of situations, I guess?
So our wildland fire module, it's a 10-person module, and they are very specifically trained to manage wildfires. They go on assignments, like they just got back from Colorado last week, I guess it was, but there are initial attack resources here. So if we have like today, we're under a red flag warning. If we were to get a new start on a fire, they would be the initial attack resources that would go on that. If we had a fire in a difficult area to safely do direct attack, they'll drop back and help us do a plan to manage that fire. Primarily, they do a lot of planning this time of year for prescribed fires, and then they also do fuels reduction. So right now they are removing conifers out of the willows in Sourdough, and that Sourdough drainage it's a beautiful drainage, and where the tie hackers used to be, but there's a lot of conifer encroachment in the willows there, and they're working on removing that just to improve that wildlife habitat and the aquatics piece of it. And also it's a key part of the Buffalo Municipal Watershed Protection Project that we have going on right now.
Talk about how people can kind of help out as well, I guess, in keeping the forest what it is today.
So one of the things that people really enjoy, of course, on the National Forest is the recreation opportunities. We have a lot of them here. And on this end of the forest, we have quite a few ATV trails and places where people can ride their ATVs or go horseback, dispersed recreation. I'm sure you saw when you drove in here, this isn't the developed campground piece. This is just dispersed rec where people can find a spot, you know, within certain distance of the road, park their campers and just enjoy it. We've got a 14-day stay limit, which is something that we ask people to respect, that every 14 days they need to move their campers at least five air miles from where they're camped, just to give others opportunities. So cleaning up after yourself, making sure that you leave a very clean campsite, making sure that you never leave a fire unattended, that your campfires are cold to the touch before you leave them. Staying on maintained roads and trails, not driving off trail. Even if you see somebody else drove off, don't follow it, because you're just going to increase that damage. And then if you have your horses or your mules up here, make sure that you're not leaving them in the same spot long enough that they're going to graze it down. Recognizing that fireworks are never legal on National Forest System lands. Just respect it. You know, the Forest Service has a slogan that it's all yours, but I really wish that was it's all ours. Yeah. You know, to just remember that we all share this, and we're a multiple use. You know, so we have great livestock grazing up here. You saw the cows.
I was going to say, saw them coming in today.
Yeah, so that's a very important part of our forest. We've got a little bit of mineral activity on the forest, lots of recreation. We've got timber harvest, but just multiple use, and recreation is one cog of that.
Talk about where exactly, how, you know, when looking at a map, how the bighorns sit, and what does make them kind of unique to the Rocky Mountain region.
So one of the things that's unique about the Bighorn National Forest, we're kind of a green island in north central Wyoming. So if you look at a lot of the other forests in Wyoming and Colorado, they've had pine beetle outbreaks, and they have got a lot of standing red dead trees. We have not had that issue on the bighorns, so we're separated from that. Some of the other things that make it really unique, the Bighorn Mountains are surrounded by the Bighorn Basin on the west side and the Powder River Basin on the east side. So they kind of rise up and are just beautiful to see from the prairie on either side. But they are also, we have a lot of open parks in even the high country. So I used to work off, in Grand Teton National Park and work with Bridger Teton National Forest a lot. And a lot of that is really steep country. And here we have a lot of areas, even over 9,000 feet, that are these beautiful open park areas that are, they just make them a lot more accessible to people than the really steep, rugged mountains to the west of us. And then the other unique thing is we don't have the endangered species of grizzly bears and wolves. We may have an occasional wolf sighting here, but we don't have any known packs. So that makes management a little bit easier with no threatened and endangered species. But mostly it's just, our relationship with our communities. We have a steering committee that's based on all 4 counties that surround the Bighorns. It's based on county commissioner and some other key officials from each of those counties, and we work together on management decisions. It's just a really great relationship and a great rapport. I feel like we, just like the Buffalo Municipal Watershed Project was, there's so many partners, so many key interested parties, and it's just a great relationship that we have with our communities. And people here they take that to heart, that these are our mountains, and just love the Bighorns. So it's great. It's a great place to be and to work.
Traci, we're going to talk to Sarah from your office and talk a little bit more about some of those recreational activities and the wildlife and stuff. But before I let you go, is there anything else you'd like to mention?
This is a great place to come, but respect it. And when we say it's all yours, that means take care of it like you would your own property. Don't leave trash, don't tear things up, don't drive off-road. Be respectful of the facts so we can keep this beautiful place as beautiful as it is.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for joining me today, Traci.
Thank you, Jimmy.
We're going to continue our conversation on the Bighorn National Forest, and I'm here with Sarah Evans Kirol with the Powder River Ranger District as well. And we're going to talk more about some of the recreational activities and some of the stuff that people experience as they come up here. But Sarah, tell me a little bit about yourself first. How did you find yourself working for the Bighorn National Forest?
Well, I grew up in Saratoga, Wyoming, and my family had a ranch there, and so I was outside all the time as I grew up and learned a lot about the outdoors. My dad was an avid hunter and fisherman, and so I always tagged along with him. And I got a job with the the Medicine Bow Route National Forest to start with, and then that job led to the position here, where I was the trails coordinator for about 15 years.
Oh, wow.
And then recently I just transferred over to public affairs and the supervisor's office in Sheridan.
Nice. So Sarah, I guess what are some of the special places that make up the Bighorns? Maybe some of the Cloud Peak Wilderness is here and some of those other areas.
So the Bighorns has a really unique ecosystem. We have everything from the desert and the grassy plains all the way up to alpine environments. And so it's very interesting. You can travel all the way to Shell Canyon and see the falls down there, and then you could come all the way back up 16 and experience the high alpine meadows and forests that we have up here. I really like Shell Falls. I mentioned there's some really beautiful waterfalls in the Bighorn National Forest. So we do have a visitor center at Shell Falls. This year we don't have it staffed, but we do have a lot of interpretive panels and information there. And of course you can do the trail, which is it's just under half a mile, I think 0.2 mile. And that's a nice stop, really quick and easy. We also have Porcupine Falls and Bucky Mule Falls, which are a little more of a hike, both of them. And Cloud Peak Wilderness you mentioned, so that's a nice place to visit.
So along with obviously the scenic beauty with the falls and everything, there's also a lot of wildlife within the Bighorn National Forest. What kind of wildlife will people see as they kind of drive around or hike around?
We have moose and elk and deer, so people see those a lot of times from the highways and the roads and on hiking trails. We also have the occasional black bear, and so we want to be careful with our camping food and any attractants that may bring a bear into your camp. You want to be careful with that. So we do have mountain lions. And if you're lucky to see a mountain lion, or if you see a mountain lion, you're very lucky to see one. They're pretty elusive. And there are lots of smaller mammals and birds, lots of game species in the Bighorns.
Yeah, no, I mean, every time we come up here, there's always lots to see as far as wildlife and stuff like that. So, so yeah, if you're looking for wildlife, it's definitely a fun place to visit. So, and like you said, you can usually see them off the road even. You don't even have to go too far.
Right.
So there's a lot of recreational opportunities in the Bighorns. Traci kind of touched on a little bit, but let's talk a little more about those camping opportunities. And also, I know people can fish and hunt and all sorts of stuff.
Yes, there's a wide variety of recreational activities that people do here and that are available here. We have dispersed camping, which we call dispersed camping. A lot of folks refer to it as boondocking, where you can camp off the forest roads or places tucked back in with your camper. We also have tent camping opportunities. We have developed campgrounds and picnic areas. And you can also just, if you can get off the road in a safe location where you're not blocking the road, you can picnic or camp within those locations. Great hiking opportunities, motorized use. We have lots of ATV trails and some motorcycle trails as well. So there's a variety there of trail use. Horseback riding is another popular sport that a lot of people do. They come from all over the country to come ride horses.
And a lot of camping and ATV and horseback riding and stuff does come with some regulations or rules that people have to follow. I'm assuming you can find all those on your website or call the office if people have questions.
That's right. Yes, our website's a really good one-stop shop place to find maps and opportunity ideas, and then your regulations. And there's a wide variety of regulations depending on the activity you want to participate in.
Now, do people need permits to come and visit the forest?
We don't have any visitor permits, but we do have some types of permits, such as the wilderness mandatory registration permit. It's not really a permit, but it's a mandatory registration. So if you are going to enter the wilderness, you will need to have that filled out and with you on your person when you're in the wilderness. And that's just so you have the regulations right there in hand, and we also know where areas in the wilderness are getting more use, and so we can make sure that we're managing them properly.
Well, Sarah, thank you very much for joining us today on this beautiful, slightly windy day, but we got through it. So thanks again for joining me.
Thank you for the opportunity.